Creation Care and Environmental Justice, which is a mouthful. We are part of the Creation Care and Environmental Justice Task Force. But what that means is that we are seeking ways to point out that God is the creator of all, and that we are called to love God and love all that God has created in all the ways that we make choices and live our lives as Christians. That's the short.
In creation care is repentance, right? There's so much that we have done and continue to do, myself included, that are not reusable, recyclable, planet-friendly choices. Buying plastic water bottles, because you forget your own and you're really, really thirsty, etc. So I think prayers of repentance start that reconciliation process and start just kind of turning our hearts towards God's creation. I think prayers of gratitude, because there's so much good in the world around us. Whether you live in a place that you're able to have a plant, whether you live in an apartment building that there's a beautiful monkey pod tree outside or something like that, if you smell plumeria coming in through your window, there's so many ways that God's creation reaches us, even when we're in buildings. So I think prayers of repentance, prayers of gratitude, and then maybe just open space in prayer, because that's where God can speak to us and direct us. And we don't have any more answers for creation care or how to do it well in this diocese, but we're certainly trying to listen. And if you would listen with us, that would be great.
So if you were to write a theology of composting, what would it be?
I met a worm farmer the other day who would have a better response than I would. But I think it would be around the nature of community as sustaining forces within their own selves. If we think about the nature of how we understand Ohana and the way that worms live together and breathe together and are sustained by the most simple of things, I think that would be one way of approaching it. The idea that there's often not a lot we need to add. And so the simplest things are the things that become the most profound in that. Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote, when he spoke about creation, about putting boundaries for our freedom. And I think that's another very powerful way of thinking about it. The boundaries that we might, and the limits we might put on our own selves for the sake of creation might not be limits to our freedom in the sense of a capitalist understanding of that. But if we think of that as the limits of the garden that God has created for us, like Bonhoeffer, I think, understood it as, then we might see ourselves free from the burden of having to constantly strive for something which is ultimately unattainable anyway, because the creation is telling us over and over again daily that it's not.
I'd also add, I think the theology of composting is a theology of resurrection, right? You're taking scraps, taking things that are dead, taking things that are useless, and like creating from them something so rich and biodiverse that then feeds a next generation of plants. Compost is the best thing you could put in your garden, the best thing for trees. And worms have made it by like eating through rubbish, right? And from their waste comes this like beautiful piece of life, and that's like resurrection.
Is there, in your experience, the difference between this work here in Hawaii and someplace on the mainland?
We're actually working through that question right now regarding our name. Environmental justice and creation care, I think are generally words that are used on the mainland, but what does it mean to do that work here exactly? And so we just had a retreat with the Racial Reconciliation Task Force and the Native Hawaiian Ministries Committee to talk about what it would mean to do that work, which kind of runs through all of our committees and work, and what would that look like? What would we call that? What would that look like rooted in this place?
Yeah, and I would also say that different from the mainland, but similar to the mainland. So different in that we are an island, our island home, right? That has been stewarded by Native Hawaiians for many, many, many generations. And in the same way that there are communities on the mainland that have been stewarded by Native peoples for many generations. And of course here in Hawaii it looks very different because of the climate and the agricultural systems that used to exist, or that hopefully still exist in some forms. And so for me, as a person who is transplanted here, who has come here to live, and but tries to ground myself in place wherever I am, even if I'm not from a place. My hope is that I become from a place, and that I think understanding is enriched by learning from the people who have been in place for a long time.
So in Oregon, there is, in the work that we're doing in this area, there's also an element of lament, because many of us believe that we are at the point now, as on the planet, where the word is mitigation. That we're over that tipping point. And so there is lament. And I'm wondering what that looks like here in Hawaii.
Thank you for that. I think that's a powerful part of our theology that perhaps the church reconnected with through the pandemic, and thinking about issues which were so beyond our comprehension that we, I think we turn back to that, at least in my perspective and reckoning. I think in working as a school chaplain and as a parent of middle school age children, I think there's real power and opportunity in lament, because that's language that they really speak daily as they're working through questions of identity. And I suspect that if they start to hear that and see that modeled by us, I think there might be a new willingness, a new openness to listen to us in terms of the generation who are, and generations for whom so much of this burden falls on us, and naturally so, consequentially so, because of our action and inaction. So I think lament could be like a form of opening, not just dialogue between us and the divine, but dialogue between generations. In the sense that it's something real and authentic about it that we might not have if we go without that.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that, as Christians, we live through Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter, right? So we know that there is that lament on Saturday, and we are living in that lament right now. We don't know what God is going to do with this lament that we have. We can pray and hope that there is going to be renewal and a better understanding of our place in the ecosystems in which we live. And we don't know what God can do. We don't. We can hope that with our help and with our attention and our prayers and our work together, that Saturday will turn to good to Easter Sunday.
So thinking of children, this generation of children are very anxious, as we know. What would you say to them as they express their anxiety around climate change and their own future?
I'm the mom of a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old. We've had many of these discussions because of that anxiety and the kind of doom scrolling that happens. I've encouraged them to remember, there's something that we used to say to our kids about find the helpers. Is that Mr. Rogers, right? Find the helpers, find the people who are helping. And so I've been working on trying to find the helpers who can give us hope. There are people out there doing work on what they call climate solutions. So yes, there's a lot to despair over, but there are ways of looking forward into Easter Sunday that are not looking only at what is in front of us, but what could be. And there are novels and podcasts and all kinds of things. So if you want any of that hopeful vision, come and see me. I will give you a whole list of things to look at or listen to. There's a wonderful book by a woman named Catherine Hayhoe, some of us read in a book study, called Saving Us. And she's a Christian and she's also a climate scientist. And she says that we're not at the point where we're Sisyphus trying to push the rock up the hill. We're at the top of the hill. We need to push the rock down. If we get enough hands on the rock pushing it down, we will find solutions. We will figure out how to mitigate. It doesn't mean there won't be suffering and trouble, but we just need enough hands to keep pushing down. And that momentum is starting. So,
I might also add, even if we're, grief is present. If you're looking at the earth and the destruction that's happening, and whether we sit in that grief or act on it, either one is an action, I guess. Either just leading yourself to despair and just saying we can't do anything, or acting or doing something for change, regardless of the consequence. It's an action either way. And so we may not know how things end up, but either way we're making a choice. I think the theologian Jürgen Moltmann said something like, Christian hope isn't acting in spite of what we see in the world, but real Christian hope is acting because of what we see in the world, that we're acting through it.
So following that theme of hope, you mentioned the author who is a climate scientist and a Christian. What does our faith have to say to those concerned with climate change?
Immediately and simply, God so loved the world, right? God so loves the world. And I think, for me, I can't get motivated out of a place of grief or despair, but I fight really hard for things and people that I love. And so for me, that love is a really essential kind of motivational force, because it's relational, right? It's reciprocal. And so I think, what does our faith have to say about it? Where, creation is given into our keeping. And I know some of the Genesis translations are like dominion and all of that stuff. We don't love that. But, given into our keeping. And I think over and over we hear Jesus speaking to not just his disciples, but like about the lilies of the field, about the birds of the air, right? He's got his feet planted where he is. And, you know, speaking to people about fish and how much is too much and what it is to catch responsibly, right? We might hear that now in some of those parables. So I think our faith has a lot to say about how, not just how we steward, but how we love, not just as God loved us, but as God loves the world, how do we love the world?
Okay, I'm going to ask you one final question. If this ministry was a dessert, what would it be?
That's a great question. Fun fact, if you ever have a chance to travel to my hometown of Brisbane, Australia, you can find a fine dining all dessert restaurant. All desserts, so I can recommend that. It beats just a simple fondue fountain in the corner. Gosh, what a wonderful question. I want to stick with the fondue fountain because that's where my mind went. And as a vegan, it would have to be a dark chocolate vegan fondue fountain.
There is now.
There is now, yeah. Whoever said that, speak to me later and I'll get the address of the party. A fondue fountain is all immersive. If one takes the strawberry and just tentatively dips it, we're only having just maybe a fraction of the fun that could be had if we immerse the strawberry. But the processed, human-driven thing, which is the chocolate, right, it's nothing without the strawberry. And if that strawberry is grown locally in upcountry Kula, right, as opposed to in California where maybe the workers were not paid a living wage, where chemicals were sprayed on those strawberries to ripen them, you're going to have a very different experience from the Kula strawberry, which is authentically grown, locally grown, and chemical-free than that strawberry from California. Just as much as if you have the chocolate by itself, which is only produced by us humans without the strawberry, it's not going to be the full experience. So there you go.
Would you each, because the mic wasn't working too well, would you each introduce yourselves to the room? With the mic, please.
Okay, I'll start here and then we can go that way. Okay. My name is Helani Sonora Pale. I am a member of the St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Wahiwa.
Aloha, my name is Meringue Vicari. I am from Little Waikiki Health, Pu'uno Prison Program.
我来自中国的南京句容。
Aloha, my name is Ken Ka'anui. I'm a community health worker for Kielomamo, which is a Native Hawaiian healthcare system. And we do prison outreach through Kahukano Patterson's backpack program.
And you are the prison ministry outreach group, correct?
I guess you could say that.
So tell us briefly about your ministry. What do you focus on?
So, Kielomamo, the agency I work for, is involved in prison ministry by supporting Kahukano Patterson's backpack program, by welcoming, greeting those exiting incarceration, particularly from Halawa Correctional Facility, with a backpack. In that backpack consists of essentials, including hygiene, snacks, towels, things of that nature, as well as the emotional material for these men exiting incarceration. When we greet them, they have no idea who will meet them out at the curb, outside the gate of Alava. And there's a lot of coordination that takes place prior to that individual exiting. But let me tell you this, when you see the face of this individual, this man exiting, having sentenced for 5, 10, 20, 25 years, and then come out, not knowing if their family is being out there, not knowing if a friend will meet them out there, but when they see a volunteer from Kahu Patterson's backpack program waiting at the curb to give them a backpack and extend our aloha to them, it's a very emotional moment for both for the volunteers as well as for the individual exiting incarceration. Next. Others?
Exactly what he just said. I go into the, well, not I, but Waikiki Health as a Pu'unu prison program. We do exactly, we help and support with the communities, with the ministry and the backpacks as well. We have like 20 men, incarcerated men who come to see us. We do a pre and post and pre registration to let them know our services at Waikiki Health, coming back out into society. We give them the backpacks as well when they come out, and then all the different services we can help: behavioral health, social services, getting their medical back reinstated, just giving them good, what is that, like motivation, or it is okay. You know, we don't judge or pass their prior. So we that's what we do. That's what I do. And I go into different facilities and different, for both men and women.
If you could describe your ideal ministry partner, what would that person have or do?
Yes. Hello? My ideal ministry partner, I would say it would be Archdeacon Steve Costa. They are Tuesday morning volunteers. They're there consistently, no complaints, whether it's raining, whether it's sunny, no matter what, I can rely on them being there to greet our brethren exiting incarceration. So much mahalo to Sister Mary and Sister Steve.
So it sounds like one of the important aspects of what you do is to lift up the humanity of the individuals who are leaving incarceration. What would you like this diocese to know about your work, and what do you need from them?
Aloha. So when the men come out, a lot of them are wearing paper shirts. They don't even have real clothes on. Some of them, don't have slippers. They have these, like when you get a pedicure, you get those slippers that where you dry your nails. That's what they come out with. So their it's about restoring their humanity when they come out. Brings to mind Matthew 25:40, which says, what you do for the least of us, you do for me, right? And it's important. This is frontline important work. We're giving them hope. We're giving them love. And people need to remember that Jesus didn't operate in a boardroom, nor did he work with the upper class. He didn't create this social movement that is Christianity from the top down, it was from the bottom up. And I think this is important work. What we need from the diocese, I think, is more support. Myself, I'm more behind the scenes with the work. I am also a member of Kaloi Hawaii, which is a Native Initiative for Self-Determination. Because of the disproportionate number of Kanaka Maoli, or indigenous Hawaiians, that are incarcerated at Halawa, currently there are over 800 souls residing there. And not many people give them a second thought. About 50% of them are Kanaka Maoli, are indigenous Hawaiians. Because of that disproportionate amount, we're very active in procuring the backpacks and supplies for this program. So we do need more help and support with supplies. We need more bodies, always volunteers. It's the very least that we can do, which is to be there when they come out. Because for whatever number of years they've been incarcerated, they haven't been treated as a human being. So that first interaction when they come out is really important for their future path. And that's the work of Jesus Christ. That's the path that he would have been there. Let's just put it that way. If anywhere Jesus was here today, and he would be there. That's where he would be, with those people.
Amen.
And so I think that is what we need. You know, we're always looking for donations for backpacks, for clothes, men's clothes, shorts, shirts. That's not, that's reusable. It can be used. Bottles, shampoo, bed sheets even sometimes, things like that. So that's an ongoing need.
So in addition to supplies and so forth, we need bodies out at the prison to welcome his brother out of incarceration. We need more volunteers. It's good to have backpacks. It's important to have backpacks, but it's even more important for you out there to be a part of this prison ministry by being at the curb and welcoming and encouraging the brethren to know that they're loved and that they're welcome and that they have value. So besides the backpacks, I think if the diocese could help in supporting more volunteers, and if you're interested in volunteering to be at the prison, it's only 1 hour in the morning. At Halapa, it's from 8:30 to 9:30. I'm always there, or someone's always there. To get a hold of myself or get a hold of me as I coordinate volunteers, contact Kalo Patterson, and he'll give you my number, and then we can work out a day for you to be there to welcome these brethren out.
Amen.
Do you want to say something? No.
I speak Chinese. I don't speak English. 我可以用中文和你们说。我来到这里，我感受到圣公会教堂给我很大的帮助。我在中国遭到了迫害，逃离了那恐怖的社会。来到这里，我得到了许多人的关心，我非常感谢所有关心和爱护我的人，谢谢。
I think even if we don't understand the language, we feel you.
Does anybody speak Chinese? Who speaks? I wanted to put Ram G up there because she's working with us, she's been working with us for 3 or 4 months. Showed up at St. Stephen's one Sunday and was baptized a few Sundays later along with her son. They're both asylees, political and religious asylum migrants from China. And they just got involved in the work. Of course, they had experienced detainment, imprisonment in China and in the United States, and are now going through the process of receiving visa status and work permits. So they're transitioning now. And in that transition, they've been volunteering and doing backpacks and helping us package clothes. I just wanted you folks to see her and meet her, because over the border this year, since January, 24,000 Chinese have come into the United States. Twice as much as in the last 3 years. Okay? They're coming into Hawaii. And it's been something new for me and others in our group to try to understand the difficulty that people coming over the border, coming into Hawaii have. And so we've been learning about it. So she's here sort of like a person who is re-entering the world from a place of violence, a place of very limited freedom, and a place of religious discrimination. Of course, the bishop has a lot of information on that too. So I had to twist her arm to come up here. I told her, you just go ahead and talk, and somebody will translate. Well, I'm translating now. We are looking for a translator, but I wanted you to feel what it's like to have somebody on the team that you can't understand, right? And how much of an effort it takes to try to work somebody. But actually, it's no effort at all. We don't know what we're saying to each other, but she shows up. She has a big smile. She can fold clothes. She can sew shorts. And we have to spend more time working with those that are different from us. Those we don't understand fully. Okay? So this is Ronji. Her son dropped her off. It took me about an hour just to give him directions to find this place. But I just want to thank Ronji for being here. And this group, this is the group. This project is very important. The bishop, this project started at St. Stephen's about 10 years ago. Bishop was totally supportive, and it just grew. And it's not just about backpacks. Clothing is very important. Both of those are very important. People coming out of prison, very important to interact with them. We want our churches to grow. We should be preaching like we were told this morning. Yeah. This is a captive audience, literally, coming out. But we also have been doing work in the prison, good work, culture-based programs. Culture-based programs in the prison. That's all I'm going to say, but thank you, Ronji, for coming. Yes.
Okay, one fun question. Not if this ministry was a car, what kind of car would it be?
I would say it would be a 14-passenger van. So when we talk about, empowering and spreading the good word, it's not just to people in your church or in your community. It's also to those that society have forgotten. So it's all of us or none of us, really, when we talk about this spreading the good word, and it's about love and hope too. And if there's a seat for everyone in this van, and including the least of us, and let's not forget about them. And I think what Kaleo is doing is good work, and mahalo him for remembering those that are incarcerated. And there are, this the system of incarceration in Hawaii and in the U.S. is really problematic. We have more people incarcerated than any other country in the world. It's become a business. Now they're looking to build another prison, a bigger one. And that, to me, is unacceptable. It's inhumane. We need to look at alternatives. And as a church, we should be on the front line of that. Also, I want to just point out that the bishop here at this church was a friend to the Queen when she was imprisoned. And her church had abandoned her, but the Episcopal Church the bishop was the only one that was visiting her while she was imprisoned. And she had said in her diary that the prayer book, the Book of Common Prayer, was a source of inspiration and strength for her. So, and I think that as a Kanaka, that really speaks to me about the good that this church can do and has done for those that are incarcerated, including our Queen.
It's really great. I have to just exercise a point of privilege because Laura is from San Augustine's on the Big Island.
The reason why I volunteered to do this is because I haven't spoken to her in 2 years. And I thought, it'd be a good way for me to see and speak with Bishop Diana. So I wait till leaves.
You really do care about the issue. You do. So tell us about the ministry of this group.
It's an eye-opener. I have struggled for 2 years with this subject, but I really have struggled all my life with discrimination. And I'm glad I am able to bring my experience to this group. And we didn't always agree. It brought some tears, but it is a very emotional subject. And we have done some training with church leaders, delegates, and I think the standing committee, but also church leaders. We did our first facilitators training last weekend. And we have a few more scheduled, so please contact Mary Carpenter about scheduling your church for facilitators. But it's been a wonderful experience, and I look forward to more training.
I guess I'll back up this story a little bit. The 2 years that Bea is talking about, we spent a lot of time in the beginning thinking about why were we there and what did we want to accomplish. And we came to the conclusion that we needed to start slowly, that we didn't want to start with telling people who might be wrong about what and what we wanted them to do to fix it or anything. What we wanted to do was get people to be able to do the type of speaking and listening to each other and reconnecting like they were talking about this morning, so that people could have these conversations together about what has happened in the past and what it means to those of us now from different communities and different groups, and how we might be able to improve the situation, bring about more fairness and justice in the future. But we wanted to start really slowly and really small, because we wanted to get people on board with us and feeling like, oh, this is not a huge, scary subject that I can't talk to other people about, because all I really need to do is like listen to them and ask questions to start talking, or things of that nature. And learning about all of this, and then trying to figure out how to explain it to other people and enroll them in it, has been kind of like what our focus has been. Let's say something. Oh, you got your own. They gave her her own.
Testing, okay. So in this evolution of the task force, because it's nice to welcome you back as our original first convener of this task force. Nice to have you back. I begged our previous convener, Andrew Arakawa, to please remove the word racial from the title, because our work is to reconcile with each other, with God, and with creation. And instead of having that problematic word at the very beginning of the title, where we all automatically assume that we're going to beat each other with the racist stick, right? The curriculum from the Archbishop of Canterbury's office and the Reconciliation Network asks us to reconcile, to be the three.
Be curious. Be present.
And reimagine.
And reimagine the future.
Yes.
Which you can also kind of think of as be hopeful. At least I do.
In the reimagining the this difference curriculum from the Archbishop's office, we are making it contextually adaptable so that it works in our diverse.
Yeah, because the question of reconciliation is rather different in Hawaii than elsewhere. You know, we don't have the basis of 400 years of chattel slavery, but we do have the people who came in from, you know, a society that benefited from that. Here we have people displaced off their lands. So it's a different story, but we need to get the stories and understand the stories and have compassion for the stories.
Correct. And it's not just racial.
Yeah.
Right? And in 4 years I've told this story before, in 4 years of EFM, every time the topic or the section on discrimination and racism comes up, the brown girl gets asked to tell her story of racism and discrimination. So in the 4th year, I lost my cool. And I lose my mind all the time, so it's pretty common. I said, so how about I stop digging up the dead horse and beating it again? How about we ask each and every one in our class to tell their story of when they have been hurt. To tell the story of when they have been marginalized, of when they have been discriminated against, be it racial, be it economical, be it by religious, thank you, be in any way, shape, or form. And that is this ho'ingi pono. This is seeking pono. I hesitate to use the confining limiting English words because they do not convey the breadth and the depth of what makes up pono. In my mind, aloha, this enduring agape love that binds and undergirds all of us. Malama, caring, showing up to kokua each other, and kuleana. The reason why God put me on this earth, so that you all have to put up with me scolding you. and I thought I wasn't a preacher, and I was corrected this morning to preach. Thank you.
Every region, I think, in our country has its own flavor of having been affected by racism. The state of Oregon, for those of you who don't know, was established to be a white-only state. So there's a lot of history that has to be reconciled. So there is a kind of truth and reconciliation piece to racial reconciliation. And I remember preaching about racism when I was at St. Augustine's in Kapaʻau, and a number of people in the congregation came up to me and said, "We don't have racism here." And what they're talking about is how complex the culture is here, because there are so many different races and nationalities. And the way of being together in community, it's not nirvana, but it's very different. And trying to understand how hurt happens here, how people are made invisible or marginalized here, is a unique undertaking. It doesn't look like it does on the mainland.
Yeah, that's a really astute description. As we started talking about it, we could see that there was a lot of models in Hawaiian culture, like the things we were talking about, aloha, kuleana, to, educate people or support people to get them to have these more expansive thoughts and to work through the complexities. Go ahead, Dee.
No, I agree with everything that's been said. Every time someone says, it's such a melting pot here, we don't have discrimination, then I think they're missing something. And it's too bad, because I think we've all experienced it, either on one side of the fence or the other side of the fence. And again, I'm hoping our curriculum will help be the beginning of communication. We're not looking to solve all problems, we're just trying to teach people how to listen and how to respect each other.
I think Hawaii has perfected the art of discrimination by microaggressions. I experience it on a daily basis as a translator, as an interpreter, because I show up with this pale face and this howdy name to be the bridge for people who do not speak English, that are marginalized, and we saw it here in action just in the previous section of not understanding how aggressive it is to bring someone whose words have never been unheard by this. I showed up to translate what was the Public Housing Authority office was actually a legal hearing by the board for, it was an eviction hearing for the public housing complex next to Aloha Stadium. And we were just coming out of out of the pandemic. And we were still under the World Health Organization, or what do you call this, CDC guidelines as to how many people can be in each room and be accommodated. So the office put this kupuna in a tool shed outside, where right next to Salt Lake Boulevard, where these big giant trucks are driving up and down, and we were given mosquito coil because we were getting chewed up by mosquitoes. And because of the code of ethics of my job, if I had advocated for her to be in a different, to be accommodated in a more appropriate space, I would have been dismissed from the assignment. So instead, at the end of the hearing, I asked, before they closed the record of the hearing, I asked for a professional courtesy to the interpreter to be accommodated in an appropriate space for professional courtesy, instead of saying, how dare you accommodate my kupuna, a member of my community, in the tool shed, who is getting evicted because she could not afford to move her vehicle. She couldn't afford to, she was disobeying the rules of, if you have a car that is no longer operable, it has to be towed. And because she couldn't afford to have her car towed, and she couldn't understand the letters that they kept sending her, they were evicting her. And this is where they put her. This is where they accommodated her. Especially in a office that has lost so many cases of discrimination against Pacific Islanders.
So you're talking about another form of dehumanization that we just heard from the prison ministry.
Absolutely.
Were you going to say something, Laura?
Not now.
Go ahead.
Well, I was mainly comforting Mary in her passion here. And people might look at that and they wouldn't know this story, and so they don't think that racism exists, but there it is, racism, classism, because she wasn't, she was this ageism, she was this old, old lady. And that's just part of the complex web. Like, Hawaii is so relationship rich that, and this is kind of how I got involved in this, it's so relationship rich, and then during the pandemic, I started seeing this real sense of entitlement from people from North America wanting to come here on vacation. And they would say the most horrible things about Hawaii, and like the feelings of anger I was having toward these people that thought they owned a piece of Hawaii because they could come here on vacation because of some late stage capitalist dream, it enraged me. And so when I got a chance to get involved with this reconciliation project, I did, because I wanted to make sure that we were doing something that would eventually lead toward what I consider to be the things that drew me to the Episcopalian Church, which is, focus on fairness, justice, taking care of each other, loving each other, and creation. So we had all these massively huge passions and ideas, but we had to bring it down to something like, well, what can we actually enroll our friends and neighbors at church in?
And even the prison ministry, we talked about that.
There's so we're not going to use the word racism because it doesn't land well in this context. I wonder about using a phrase like the narrative that privileges you. Because part of what you're describing, Laura, and part of your story, Mary, is the narrative that people are operating out of. And part of that narrative is, I'm not a bad person, I'm not racist. But the narrative is, it all makes sense to me, and the people I don't see, I'm not responsible for that. So there's still obviously work to be done, and you all are on this, doing this ministry because of that, and grappling with how do we get people to see the depth of this issue with different language, a different way of framing it, because and particularly that narrative you're describing, Laura, I mean, we see it everywhere in Hawaii. Well, this is my narrative of privilege when I come here, and I belong here because I have these pieces of evidence that help me justify that, and I don't have to worry about what I don't see, what I choose to ignore, or be blind to.
Yes. Yes. The beauty of Ho'inipono, right? So the beauty of Ho'inipono is that it's encouraging all and everyone and all of us to tell our story and listen to each other, right? And to see the hurt that's been that we've all experienced. And then maybe then it plants the seed where your eyes, each and everyone's eyes are open, that they see the world, that we all see the world in a perspective where we all see that what hurts one hurts all.
When we were just coming out of the pandemic, I was going to one of the first in-person meetings in our diocese. It was with an ecumenical ministry group, and they had a sign on the table as we came into the meeting space, because some people were opting to wear masks and other people weren't. And the sign basically said, you're welcome to wear a mask if you feel comfortable doing that, but please remember, people, all people are more vulnerable than they appear. And they were talking about COVID, but I read that sign and I was like, that just has deep theology.
Yes.
I'm sorry, so I'm going to segue back into the prison ministry, because part of this ministry that we have done is going into very few opportunities we've had this year, was going into the Tuhalava prison to do hui baibala with prisoners, Kaleo and Ha'aheo and our brother Steve. And aside from Makariki, is to have Native Hawaiians read the Bible in their native language. And we face our ministry, the Native Hawaiian ministry and the Episcopal Church ministry faces discrimination from the prison chaplain, because they're evangelical. So there's religious discrimination against that. And then, of course, me being sneaky, I sneak in the pidgin translation because as an advocate for access to resources and language, and especially to the Word of God, the prisoner who does not speak Olelo or reads very good English speaks pidgin, and God should talk to them in the language that they speak to God in.
So, fun question. If this ministry were a workout, what part of the workout would it be?
A marathon.
I've got to say that actually working in this ministry has been one of the most intellectually terrifying and stimulating things I've ever done. And it actually caused me to go back to college 35 years after my first degree to get another degree in Hawaiian Studies. So it's a marathon, but it's also like between parts of your marathon, you kind of like hustle up with like really awesome people and talk to them about really interesting thoughts, and then you worry about the world for a while.
And I'm the water boy.
Thank you.
I've been in this diocese for a few years now. I work at Camp Mokuleia. I'm in charge of all the programming there, and so my role within the diocesan youth is to help facilitate these activities and these events. Once a year we have a diocesan youth ministry retreat at Camp Mokuleia. It's usually in the springtime. And I remember a couple years ago, it was 2022, and they said, okay, we got to do this. I said, okay, maybe we'll get 7 kids. I hope. Maybe. We ended up with 30, just out of nowhere. And that showed me that the kids, the youth specifically, they want to come. They want something to do. They want to get off their devices. They want to connect at a deeper level. They want to connect with adults as well. And then the second year, I thought, okay, we had 30 sign up last year, 27 came, maybe we'll get 30, and then we had 40. And then that event even expanded outside of the diocese and had youth from other churches that were coming. And then it started that in the summertime, those kids were coming back. And then I'd get to see them for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks over the summer, and then we'd see them in the springtime again. So then with this event now, trying to do regional events on each island, the hope is that we will continue to see these youth come back. So I was updating everybody last week on the registration that we have for the Big Island event. And at first we had 1. I'm like, all right, we gotta push harder, we gotta get some more. And then we had 9. But even out of those 9, I knew 7 of them because they'd come to camp. So for me, knowing that the kids want to keep coming back makes it a success for me.
Just to add to that, I think another sign of success is the level of collaboration. And I've fallen in love with this team. Being part of this diocesan youth team has been a tremendous blessing for me. I feel I'm growing through it. And with this Hawaii Island Youth Day, which is going to be next Saturday on the 19th, it's wonderful how we got the expertise of Camp Mokuleia staff coming, giving up their time and energy and expertise, in order to come and help lead this, and this event that we're going to have. To see the churches come together, I haven't sensed any kind of pride, like overweening pride or anything like that from anybody. And to me, it's already a success. It's just a question of seeing the complete fruition of that, and hopefully, as Lindy said, to be able to use this as a model for how we can do regional youth events on each of the islands as well. I think it's a tremendous thing to have a camp and us as a diocese come together for something like this.
If you were given a couple $100,000 for this ministry, how would you spend it?
A bus and an airplane.
Say that again?
A bus and a bus. I would buy a bus. And I would buy an airplane.
I think they're more expensive than that.
I think we want to grow and not rapidly, because we will make mistakes along the way. So I think at the pace we're going is good. We don't want to spend all the money at one time. So we'll parse it out. But the idea is to get kids to come together, to enjoy each other, to know each other, to know that when they come together to our event, that it is a safe space for them. It's a great time for them to see us as adults wrestling with God, and they can come and talk about their experience, belief or disbelief with God, but it is a safe space for them to explore. And we think that's important. We think that the adults who participate in this are their models. But wrestling with God is what kids do all the time. To the point where we don't see that many kids, our own kids, not participating in churches. But we want them to come and know that when you come to our event, yes, it's a good place for you to talk about God.
And also, I think, in addition to that, this directly to the question, but bounce off you, that that we can also learn. We have much to learn from our youth, much to learn from their imagination, from their energy, from their concern for the world. I really appreciated the creation group that was up here a few moments ago, and that's very at the heart of where many of our youth are at. They are concerned about our world and about where it's going, and we need to engage them now so that as they grow, they can be the ones to make positive and impactful change on this world.
What do you teach, or what do you want youth to know about prayer?
The thing that came to my mind is St. Gregory of Nyssa, the saint, the Cappadocian saint from the 300s, and one of his quotes is that the greatest thing in life is to be God's friend. And just has such a resonance to our time, I think. We're looking for deep, deep friendships in a world of superficiality. And if we can model that, if we can exemplify that, if we can engage in a deep way, in a profound way, then I think that's a success.
And to piggyback off of that, I think, and what you said before, Lindy, about the pace, right? I think, this whole day is about discipleship, and that takes time. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to build trust. It takes time to learn one another's stories, to learn where they've come from, where they want to go. That takes time to do that. And each time we have an event, each time we have a way that we can connect with the youth, that helps bring that the next step.
And we want to use the church as a model of morning prayer and evening prayer, which is what we're going to do. We've been using this book. What's the title of the book?
Common Prayer for children and youth or families, yeah.
So we've been using that at Holy Apostles in Hilo for our youth ministry Sunday school up until recently. We're using that, especially during the pandemic, because we could use a model online. We were having Sunday school online and introduce music and videos electronically. So, without having to set anything up. So we're going to use a model like that at the end of our sessions, and Kavika will lead that. So we want them to know what our Episcopal style of prayer is, so that they do that often, and this is how we pray. It's one of the ways we pray, but this is our model. And so we definitely want to use that at the end of the day, evening prayer. We can also use the beginning of morning prayer. And to build enthusiasm like how we had this morning in our own morning prayer. That is so magnificent to get kids to be singing and praising God in the same way that we do.
Across the Episcopal Church, you'll run into bishops, priests, deacons, lay leaders who will trace back when their faith in the Episcopal Church really gel or stuck at camp, at church camp. Have you had an experience at church camp that is part of your story?
Short answer is yes. I grew up going to a camp every summer from 4th grade all the way on, and I always wanted to be one of the counselors. Unfortunately, I left that church when it came time for me to be a counselor, but I was able to be a counselor at other church camps. I was in Alaska for 3 weeks one summer, living out, way in the woods. There's nothing there but tents. And I remember just connecting with the kids every day, learning their stories, learning who they were, learning their families. You had to get to that camp by boat. So the kids would come in with their fathers and with their uncles, they'd drop them off, and then the adults would go fish all night long, and then they'd come the next morning with this big giant Alaskan salmon to share with the camp, and just having that family mentality. And then now, working at the camp, being the assistant director there, hearing the stories from the campers, but also my counselors that are returning every year, and what camp has meant to them, it just builds off of that. Would you like to add something?
Leah, do you mind just sharing one of those stories
Yeah.
that you're sharing with us?
So I have a few quotes from some of the campers and from some of the counselors in the last 2 years. This is actually a 9th grader who goes to Holy Nativity. She said after coming to the diocesan youth retreat last year, she said, "I generally enjoyed all of the activities.
I love the different elements of being able to connect with fellow campers through the group activities, such as paddling and ziplining, while at the same time connecting with them on a closer mental spectrum in terms of discussions and sharings. And at that time, she was only in 9th grade. Then I have another, she was a counselor in training this year, so she was on our staff, but she's been a camper for 3 years. iPhone just had an update, and every time you touch the screen, it does something new. Sorry. All right, here we go. For me, Camp Okalai'ia is like a second home. I've spent 3 summers as a camper and 1 as a CIT, which is a counselor in training. I enjoy having a space to make new friends and talk to others without being distracted by our devices. My favorite memory as a CIT was when the elementary school group buried me and the other counselors in the sand. I would like to think camp has helped me become more patient. Working with kids can be really frustrating sometimes, so it's important to stay calm, and that's something I occasionally struggle with. Can I read 2 more? Okay. This one piggybacks off of the camper that became one of our CITs. This is another counselor. She has been a counselor for 3 summers in a row. I hired her after her freshman year of college. She wanted to be an elementary teacher, and she is a pipsqueak of a human. She's a very tiny human, and so elementary was a safe place for her because of her physical size. So here's her story. She said, for me, Camp Okalai'ia is like a second family. It's an environment where I feel loved, supported, impactful, and encouraged to grow. I've had so many good memories, it's hard to pick one. One of my favorite feelings is when my campers from previous years come back and then they are so excited to see me and I see them. One of my campers actually graduated to being a CIT this last year, which was really cool. This year, camp was a place of rest, renewal, and recreation for me personally. I was able to pour myself into something I truly love, make new friends, strengthen other friendships, rest my soul, my body, my mind, and play. I found joy in something I love doing with people that I love. I overcame new challenges, which grew me into a better version of myself. The principles I learned at camp each year pour into other aspects of my life. I was challenged to be a middle school counselor, her 2nd year here, and now she's teaching middle school full-time in Virginia. I also learned how I can do difficult and seemingly impossible things, like being an oceanfront lifeguard, that gave me the courage to take a full-time middle school teaching job with only 3 days to prepare. I'm really grateful for camp and everybody there and the experiences that I've had. They are priceless and unforgettable. Can I read one more? Please. It's short, I promise. This is from a counselor who has been with us for 2 years. She's about to finish her nursing degree in December. And she wrote, I'm going to try to not, I won't tear up. I'm probably going to fail at that. Okay. I learned how to slow down and feel the earth's language, how to be flexible and adapt, how to encourage the quitters, to comfort the fearful, to calm the frightened and anxious, to provide structure for the wild, to peacemake, to listen to the ones that no one hears, and to find lovable things in every single person and how to communicate in a way that unpeeled their layers to get to know them better. So these are the things that our diocesan youth ministry is pouring into. These are the people that we're pouring into. These are the kids, these are the middle schoolers, these are the high schoolers that we're trying really hard to help them grow into young adults that will help make a change in our world.
Okay, one fun question.
Pick the dessert. Ready? We got this.
If your ministry were a toy, what kind of toy would it be?
Well, I would pick a sailboat, because a sailboat is kind of like a toy, but it's very challenging because you are in control of this whole thing. And unlike a baseball, or basketball, or football game where you need to collaborate with other people, but a sailboat gives you many challenges, and some can be life-changing challenges when you're out in the big ocean, believe me. So a sailboat would be the toy that I would incorporate with our youth ministry.
I thought of a kaleidoscope, and the whole aspect of taking the beauty of the variety of that and how it all works together, and that young people can find their sense of belonging not only in God, but also in how they can be of service to one another in this world. And so I think that the class was a good image.
I like both of those. I think I would say at camp we have these giant mega paddle boards, and they fit up to 1,600 pounds. So they could fit, 10 to 12 little kids, it could fit 8 high schoolers. They're pretty incredible. You take them all over the bay, but you have to all work together. You cannot steer that thing by yourself. I've tried many times, I fail. You have to have at least 3 other kids with you helping to paddle. But the cool thing is you can take it out in the bay, you can paddle around, and when you get tired, which means pretty quickly, when you get tired you can throw the buoy off the edge and you can anchor it. And then you can just sit and rest and float and jump and flip and do backflips and snorkel and whatever. And so when I think of our youth ministry, I think of ways and activities that allow all the kids to be able to pick and choose how they want to interact with it. If they need calm, if they need the excitement, if they need the crazy, whatever it is, that they're able to come and be themselves.
Wonderful, thank you. Here you are, Deacon. So, can you describe in 5 sentences what does it mean to be a deacon? What is the ministry of a deacon?
With you said 5 sentences?
Give it a shot.
Well, I think for me, the most important one is being the link between the church and the world, which is kind of tricky. So it's a tricky balancing act because we have 1 foot in the church, 1 foot in the world. Another would be that we're models of service outside the church doors. It's in our liturgical role and the things that we're asked, that we're assigned to do in the liturgy. We're to model you all getting out into the world and doing good. Church isn't from just from 10 to 11. It's the other 6 days of the week too. Do you have other sentences?
Stuff you stole my 2. But certainly I would really just, to me, that whole idea of being the link between the church and the world. But for me, the overriding thing about being a deacon really is around service, around service stuff. So, in terms of the liturgical role, but for me, having been a deacon over 50 years or so, that I really see the work that I've done in the so-called secular world. I've always worn my deacon hat in the terms of the way I try to function in those settings in order to really to act out my Christian ministry.
I'll add, I think it's part of, we need to know what the world needs, what our communities need. And as a deacon, I want to inspire people to go out and do that work. The work that God has told us to do. The work that we've been hearing already, creation care, taking care of prisoners. We are told that that's the work. As a deacon, I think too that we are going to be so much of the future of the church because that's what we need to do, get out of our buildings and do the work that Jesus told us to do.
Say more about that. The deacons are the future of the church. Should I go on?
No, I'm really, when I first was talked to, people told me I was a servant and to the Baptist diaconate, and they'd say, you're a prophet. And I had no idea what it was talking about. I said, I don't know what the future is. But a prophet like the prophets of old to talk about what we're called to do, what we aren't doing, what we need to do God's work. It is that calling, and as a deacon, I need to let you know what that is, to help you do that. To say, okay, my community needs homes for the homeless. How can we do that? To go out and talk to the community leaders. We need to be in communication with each other, to work together and bring the churches together, to work together, to do this work. There's so much we can do as the leaders, because that's not us. I mean, the priests bring the people together. We send them out to do the work and inspire them to do that. And I think that is the future of the church. We are changing, and we are going to be a big part of doing that. That's why we need people, the diaconate. If you have a servant's heart, or feel that kind of passion for where the church is going, stand up and be a part of it.
I think too, though, the stumbling block is that many parishioners never see a deacon. And so they don't know that's something that they can do. I remember when I was a child during the civil rights movement, I never saw a black teacher, I never saw a black nurse or doctor. So I didn't think that that's something that I could ever be. Certainly never. I wanted to be an altar boy when I was a kid. I want to be an altar boy too, but I couldn't be. But my point is, we just need to be more visible, and you who are in ministry in the church, you have deacons in your parishes. You do. Take a look at our revamped website. Go to the deacons page. Look at our stories, learn about us, and contact us if you have questions. We're happy to help look you up.
So when you say you have deacons in your congregation, you mean people who are called to be deacons?
And may just not know it.
So how help people understand how to recognize? What eyes do you need to see with?
I think the basic thing is somebody with a servant heart. That's where it starts right there. And a lot of times it's the person that, like, you were involved with everything at church before you became a deacon. Just everything going on. For me, it was a little bit different. I experienced just a really strong call from ministry. Like sometimes I was saying when I preached a little bit yesterday, the Holy Spirit, I'm waiting for you to talk to me. Give me the answer, give me the answer. And sometimes you just get hit over the head. Really, and she's loud, and that's sort of with me with the diaconate.
Bishop, in response to your question, I have to think about the session that we had this morning about we are all preachers. As far as I'm concerned, we are really all deacons. So, I mean, if you're really going to be, as Bishop Kerr talks about, being soldiers in this, in the Jesus movement, that those ministries, we all share, in those ministries and stuff. So, we are all preachers, we are all deacons. So come and join us.
What is one thing you're doing in your ministry that is exciting right now?
Well, me, it's Hale-Iki, and that is a ministry of, there's sort of this horseshoe on Hawaii Island. It's a horseshoe of trailers. Not trailers, storage containers. And whole families are living in these little storage container units as they're await housing. So I think there are 13 of them right now. And our little church here, they contact me and they say to my little church, I've got a family moving into housing on October 15th. It's a dad with a 9-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter. They need a twin bed, they need a couch, they need dishes, they need whatever they need. And our church provides a good deal of that. And unfortunately, I wish, like anything, the parishioners could come with me when I deliver those things to people and just see the look of gratitude on their faces and what it means. I mean, people just break down and cry when you bring a box of diapers. But they can't, because there are many women in those little storage containers that are victims of domestic violence. So they don't allow you just to drive up and go there. But people are just, they just can't believe that our church does this without ever meeting the people that we're helping.
You know, for me, I came to this diocese about 8 years ago, and probably the primary thing is identify. My role as a deaconess, who is our former senior warden, a lay member of our parish, created something called a community watch. And this was a ministry at Holy Nativity that served as a bridge between the church and the school. 8 years ago, those two entities, shall we say, were not on happy cooperative terms. But this ministry of Community Watch, it involved elder members of the parish to be welcoming to the students and the parents and the staff as they came in. So these two groups had very little communication, but through that ministry over about 6 years now, you know, the communication, the bridge has happened, so that we have grown to a much more healthy institutional relationship on that campus. And for me, that was an excellent way in which the church and the school representing the community at which I work together. So that has been the defining aspect of my Benedict style. And the other part of my service deacon here, I have been involved with the Samaritan ministry on that board, but that was a combination from my previous life as a kind of community psychologist who specialized in religious issues. So the Samaritan ministry was just a natural for me as a vehicle in order for me to bring my skills as a psychologist and my role as a deacon together. So those have been the two things that define my life here as a deacon in this class.
Thank you. Mary Margaret.
Mine is I'm just a year as a deacon, and I'm at St. Michael's and All Angels in Lihue, and they have a Loaves and Fishes program that has been going on, and that's where my heart has been, to expand it and make it better. We've been getting grants so that we can buy local produce, so to give everyone better food and local grown food, and we are trying to expand it into the school system so that we can have food for children on weekends when they're not having school provided food. Also, I've been working with the Lihue UCC church, who have an area where they have homeless can stay overnight, and providing meals for them. So trying to expand and working with our church on the west side about food for Hawaiian children. There's a lot of things in the works, but it's talking and just seeing where the need is and how we can fit that need in feeding people.
I think of deacons as the connective tissue in our communities. It kind of, the church being at the center and we're the connective tissue that radiates out from that. When I was serving at St. Augustine's on the Big Island, I was fortunate to have Deacon Lonnie, who had all these connections in the community that made it possible for our church to help and be a resource in a wide variety of ways. What is one piece of advice you have for us today about building partnerships in the community?
I was just talking, community, go out and meet your community leaders. Go into any community function that's happening, get your name out there, who you are. It's trying to get groups together and find out what the need is, but it's talking, it's learning story, it's listening to other people and find out where their needs are and say, well, we've got something that will work for you. But I think that's it, walking, talking our story.
And it goes back to what I said in the beginning about our visibility, so that being involved in interfaith gatherings. But there are also a lot of people in our churches who have those connections, that if they know we're a deacon, they can connect with us. It comes down really, I think, to our visibility. And I wanted to go back to something you said to me in the very beginning, one of the first questions before we finish, and that is, today we celebrate Philip, and it's one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And what did the angel say to Philip? Get up and go. Get up and go. And I think that's what deacons do. We get up and we go to places we never would have thought we would go.
And people we would never sponsor.
Yeah. I think that's what we do.
So that's a great segue to my fun question. If your ministry was a pair of shoes, what kind of shoes?
Your story is equal. She's got 200 pairs of shoes. If our ministry was a pair of shoes, for me, I think I'd be barefoot.
Yeah, that's what I said. I served in barefoot, always. I was confirmed barefoot, so.
I guess I meant to say a walking shoe.
Walking shoes. Thank you all very much.